Good morning, buenos días. We are going to start making the introduction in Spanish and then we will change into English the conferences. Okay? Pues buenos días, bienvenidos a Digital Communication Week. Doy la palabra directamente a nuestro decano de la Facultad de Comunicación, Humanidades y Magisterio, Enrique Martínez, para que haga la inauguración del evento. Gracias, Enrique.
Muchas gracias, Juan Francisco. Bienvenidos a la Digital Communication Week. Es un gusto inaugurar este evento que pasa a ser el primer evento de la nueva Facultad de Comunicación, Educación y Humanidades. Y por tanto, siendo el primero, pues es una satisfacción particular. Este evento me lleva a agradecer a todos los que lo han organizado, particularmente a Juan Francisco, y también a los que vienen invitados a participar en él. Ponente de hoy, que ahora nos presentará Juan Francisco, Pico Serrano, también Paco Segarra, que vendrá mañana, y Jordi Urbea, que vendrá el día siguiente. Cuando le preguntaba a Juan Francisco sobre qué trataba este año esta semana, ¿no? dedicada a la comunicación digital y cómo entendía él lo que me dijo que iba a ser el tema, que es la transformación digital, su respuesta fue que todo lo que es la transformación digital esté al servicio de las personas. Y si esa es la orientación que se le quiere dar, me parece realmente formidable, porque los medios están siempre al servicio de los fines, y los fines no dejan de ser las personas. Este mismo evento está al servicio de todos los que estáis asistiendo al mismo, y en ese sentido pues me satisface que este sea el sentido profundo de la Digital Communication Week. Así que bienvenidos y pues comienza este nuevo evento de la nueva Facultad de Comunicación, Educación y Humanidades.
Muchas gracias, Enrique. Bueno, pues I would like to introduce our next guest. He's the first guest of this Digital Communication Week. He's Pipo Serrano. Pipo Serrano has a long career as a journalist, and he's a specialist in digital transformation, of course, in newsrooms, but also how to make coverings, information coverings using Mojo, using mobile journalism. That is exactly the topic that he's going to develop today with us. He's now also the head of strategy and content in broadcast group. Thank you. And a lot of experience in this sense. And I think that all the audience wants to listen to you. Thank you, people.
Thank you very much. Let's avoid that. Let's go to this. Well, thank you very much for being here. I don't know if you can. Brilliant. I hear myself like coming. So yeah, this session, as far as we talked with Juan Francisco and with the team, was meant to go through digital transformation, and not only about Mojo, which of course we'll talk about, and to talk about. You want me to move the mic? I think we're going to move a bit the mic. Maybe I did it wrong. Okay, I did it back. Yeah. That spends as much as we need for this, because if we have to be here for how long? 1 hour 10, you better listen to this.
Okay, so this is about
digital transformation, and of course,
in my career and with my team, one of the things
happened when transformation was that we introduced, and I introduced Mojo in the newsroom. If this is annoying, I can get any mic, so whatever you want. I don't mind. ¿Queréis que cambie el micro?
Casi que mejor.
No, digo porque si no van a acabar hasta las narices de mí. Si no os importa, voy a quitarme el micro de aquí, porque si no, me parecerá que estoy así. Bueno, como decía, in English, yeah. It's a bit stressing. So as I was saying, Mojo is just one of the results of the digital transformation of the newsroom. today I'd like to explain you and share with you some of the elements that had to do with that digital transformation. Basically, the focus was in ATV. ATV, I don't know if you've heard about it. This is the private, it used to be, because now it's just like some strange series and things like that. It used to be like the private TV from the communication group Rodon. And the same way they've got the radio, they used to have these ATV projects, basically, I would say, yeah, essentially made of Josep Cuní with Al Dia, which was the show that we're leading, and basically the whole structure of the informative shows. So it was not only his show, also the middays show and the weekend time show. So that was with the process. But let me just explain you some of the things, because when we talk about digital transformation, we tend to talk about we try to think that this is kind of separate of the way we live, and we should start thinking that this has a lot to do with the way we live. So the way we tell stories, it has to be different if we consume things in a different way. You are a generation, you and me in a way, of everything for now. So you want things right now. You don't decide something and it happens in a month's time. You have, let's say, when getting into the university, I was meeting some couple of students saying, I found whatever, I don't know because I didn't kind of listen too much, but I found some product on Black Friday and I just got it so fast, it was so great, and I got 2 for 1 and blah, blah, blah. That's our life. We see things, it goes really fast, and even it takes less to have it at home than going to the shop and get it. So you are used to say, I want to read this, I want to know about that, and you discover it. Second, you're more connected than ever, but you're more disconnected than ever. So your generation is that type of generations that basically meets other people in a bar while talks through WhatsApp or other services with some other people who's not in the bar. And when you finish that kind of beer, coffee, or whatever, you realize that you didn't really get in touch too much with the people you met initially. You just met the other people outside, and then when you meet that people outside physically, you talk with the ones that you were the day before on that bar. So it's pretty a strange way that we connect with the people, but we are connected basically to devices. More things, your life. Your life is in your pocket. Well, now it's not in my pocket, but my life is normally in my pocket. And that has a lot to do with the way you live. I mean, you can forget your keys at home, and you will never go back. You'll find a way to get in. But if you forget your smartphone, you will probably go back. That's pretty typical, that we all feel like a bit, I don't know, like nude. Like we don't have something really important for us when not having the smartphone with us. More things, for example, you have more knowledge. Yeah, in a way you have more knowledge. And some people say, well, we know a lot of things that our generations, previous generations didn't ever know. But to be honest, the previous generations had probably less general culture, but deeper. You know about everything. You get lots of impact. You've heard about everything. But if we ask you about that topics, about whatever is going on in the world, you probably have heard of it. You would probably say, oh, yeah, I know that. It's familiar to me. What do you know about it? Nothing. Because you've gotten a huge knowledge, an ocean, but with 1 centimeter of depth. So that's pretty typical. We've got lots of impacts. And we don't really know, and that's another problem of our generation, if we can trust that impacts. Because those impacts come from several places, and we never remember if this came from a newspaper, if we listened to that on the radio, or we just, I don't know, we read it in a tweet. So it's really difficult to separate if we can trust that messages or not. And I presume and I think that it's time to rethink all this work we do, everything we do basically, but we need to rethink concepts. There are lots of professionals working on certain things like slow journalism, so trying to get more time to think, to investigate, to research, because after many years connected to Google, there's many people who's not doing journalism anymore. It's just kind of getting some information from several outlets and bringing it to their newsroom. That's all. So you read something that El País said, and you said in your radio because you have to say it because they said that was amazing. And there's like this common agenda setting that makes that you have to say, everybody has to say the same. We should think on how to fight with fake news. Many people say, how can we do it? it's easy. More journalism, real journalism. That's the only way that we will be able to fight against fake news. If we really do real journalism again. And that's happening in certain places. It's happening in New York Times, it's happening in Washington Post, when they realized they had to change their kind of, in certain moments like Washington Post, their core business, because they were adopted, bought by Jeff Bezos, the guy who owns part of your data and a lot of your money because you bought lots of things in Amazon. But he brought it into a really efficient newsroom. Well, like he did, New York Times is doing pretty much the same. So when thinking to how to inform in 21st century, we should start thinking on how we behave in 21st century. It doesn't make sense to think that there are separate things. How do you learn things? Where do you search? When you want to learn something, you can talk. Where do you learn? Where do you search? Great, where? On the internet. If you want to learn how to do a Spanish omelette, where would you learn? Thanks, YouTube. You know which is the first search engine in the world? Google, right? Which is the second? YouTube. We don't learn things in the same way. We don't enjoy it in the same way. We don't share content on the same way. We don't get in touch with other people in the same way. We don't meet our couple sometimes in the same way. So if all that happened, why do we think that journalism is different? Why do we think that we need to do the same things? So that's a bit what I think it has to change. We need to, in a way, go back to basics, because we need to go back to the real journalism in sense of investigate, research, have good sources, double-check content, so that you are different enough than tweets and lots of noise in the net. But that's what we need to be relevant and to be credible. But apart from that, we need to understand that the channels, the platforms, are different. They are different. For example, how do you read newspapers? How do you get engaged on that? Do you normally buy the paper, the newspaper on paper? How many of you buy the paper? Okay, great. Older generations, great. No, it's great. I love the paper. It smells different. It's amazing. You have it with you. You know, it will never be, run out of battery. But we don't get like the latest news on the paper. We get something that happened a day and a half or 2 days ago. The papers are redesigning their focus and their goals. They're becoming a major place to think and evaluate and have deep analysis on things, which is great. And but well, it's different. Many times we tend to read things on digital. The same with the consumption of TV. You probably watch TV, but probably you watch what you decide to watch. I mean, you don't watch whatever is on the TV. And apart from that, your TV is a bit different, because although you've got the same TV that I have, you have some other TVs. You've got Instagram, you've got your stories. You can spend there 30, 40, 50 minutes looking at things, just going, and you're there, connected. It's a different type of show, but it's another show. And we need to understand that if some of you are connected there, maybe we need to spread the word also there. Maybe we need to explain things also there. So it's useless to think that everything has to be as it used to be. The same with the radio. I love the radio. I've been working on the radio my whole life, and I cannot be one day without the radio. But I don't really listen it on any device like that. Well, to be honest, I think I don't have any old device at home since many years ago. I mean, I don't have a DVD since 12 or 15 years ago. I mean, I listen it on my Google Home or on several devices. And you can listen to the radio, but you can also listen to amazing podcasts. And you can also listen to music, or you can also listen to lots of things, audiobooks. Audiobooks is a major trend everywhere. So things are becoming more audible, but it doesn't have to be on a traditional radio. So going back to the beginning, if we have smart consumption, if we get the content from those devices, why don't we think that we should create it from those devices? Why don't we think that we should distribute it from those devices? It doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, I'm going to get my Mac, I'm going to get my Premiere, I'm going to get some content, and I'll try to fit it in that screen and see if it fits. Well, maybe you should start creating it there. It will fit, for sure. So my intention is to change minds in that sense, and that's what I tried to, and I think I did in ATV, on that TV, and I also did on some other media. I'm doing it right now partially in Cadena Ser. I did it also in Group Flash and in some other companies. Because now, and this is the amazing thing, there's a guy called Tom Forensky that if you don't know him, he's a smart guy who used to be in Financial Times. And in 2005 or 6, he decided to give up and start creating his own company because he realized, and he said in a Cisco conference, that from now on, every company is a media company. This that sounds so cool was said by him in 2006, so 13 years ago. And that includes you. You are a media company. You, each of you, is your own channel. You are your own channel. You have to address to your audience. You've got your own audience. Because this is not anymore about one single road. This is not about emitters and we are the receivers. Everyone is an emitter and a receiver, and this is bidirectional. So it doesn't make sense that you forget that. And by the way, I would hire someone in my team much faster if I see that he's got or she's got a great audience than if I presume that he's like or she's like alone with her own thoughts or desires or patience or whatever. And it doesn't matter what you like. Just write about it. Just share it. Just communicate. Create your own kind of interest and if you do that, you will become, for sure, a much better journalist. How many of you are runners? How many of you run? I don't run. I mean, never. Only if you chase me. Okay, runners. How many of you practice biking, mountain or somewhere? Cycling, yeah. Great, cycling. How many of you go to the gym? Great. Okay, how was the first day? Do you remember the first day you did it? It was painful. It's terrible. And if you run or you go on bike on the mountain, it's terrible. I mean, it kills you. You don't want to do it again. And your body is really painful. But what happens on the second day, and on the third day, and on the fourth day? And what happens if you do it every single day? Whatever you do it every single day, you'll become excellent and relevant. And it's going to be much easier. So that's what we have to do as journalists. Focus on our patients and try to write or record videos or express it with audio or share it in any way. Just create your own audience and your topic. And if you do that every single day, I can assure you that when you get out of the university, there's going to be plenty of people wanting to hire you because you'll be much better than many of the people in the newsroom because you've been investigating on that because you love it. So that's the focus. But then what it changes, it's the tool. So technology as a tool, not as an end. It works as a different platform, nothing else. So if we understand that each of you have or are your own company, your own media company, you should start talking because people want to listen to you. So start talking and start thinking and deciding what would you like to talk about. Because the story matters, and the story matters the most. This is not about, as I was saying, technology. This is always about stories. The only thing that connects humans is emotion and stories. From like the very first days in our life, when you get your kids, or when you were a kid, what's the first thing that your dad or your mom or your grandpa was going to say? Do you want me to tell you a story? And you listen to that, and you love it. So why not doing it the whole life? I mean, we do it the whole life. The only problem is that someone told us that it has to kind of lose emotion when you get older. And it's much better if it has emotion. Let me share with you some examples of stories. They're very short, you're not going to get all the kind of the sense of it, but little stories.
Many of us follow our dreams or pursue our passions. Vanessa Power did, and all because of a love of letters.
Yeah, I worked in web design for a few years and I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. It's quite miserable actually, so
Can I get another stainer? In life, what's going on?
Not much.
This is a trailer of the film.
It's going to be tricky to go back to a more conventional way of shooting now that I've done that, because to find myself in a situation where I can't get the lens exactly where I want it, or if I'm going to, it's going to take a while. That would be frustrating.
As the evening rush hour ends, another queue starts at the GPO. The homeless and the hungry come for a soup run. But it's not just food on offer here tonight. 4 barbers are giving free haircuts.
Es el más humilde de los cementerios. Tierra antes que mármol cubre las sepulturas, pero aquí reposa el más rico entre los difuntos.
Pablo Escobar, the most important person
Y eso lo convierte en una atracción turística.
Min passion for kaffe, den startede, da jeg som 18-årig rejste rundt som backpacker i Australien, hvor jeg fik et job på en lille café lidt syd for Sydney, hvor jeg arbejdede som barista i et halvt år, hvor jeg så stod og servere kaffe om formiddagen, og så kunne jeg surfe i den her cykelby om eftermiddagen. Det var sådan der, hvor jeg fik smag for, hvad kaffe kan, at kaffe er altså ikke bare kaffe. Du har mulighed for at påvirke kaffesmagen på så mange forskellige måder, lige fra valg af bønne til ristningsgrad, temperaturen du brygger ved, brygningskoden osv. osv. Jeg synes bare, det er så spændende at fintune alle de her små elementer for at skabe den perfekte kaffe.
I was going to put this volume down because this video you will probably not understand. It's probably not a filmmaker. Let me see.
Så jeg synes, det er en rigtig god.
I'll just stop it there. There are beautiful images, but it's like 2 minutes. I'll share this slide with you afterwards, so if you want to see it, you can see it. But I wanted to share that with you because that's filmed by a young kid who was 2 years ago was finishing his degree, and he's amazing, Silas Bang. And I love the way, and that was shared in the Mojo community. There's a huge mobile journalism community around the world with around 500, 600 journalists that we meet once a year in Ireland, and it used to be in Dublin, now it's in Galway, with people from RTE, which is the television, the public television radio in Ireland, BBC, CNN, AG+, I mean lots of places. But Silas he's now one of the team, let's say, but at the beginning, the way he shared his resume, his curriculum, was this way. Let me show it to you. Let me see if I can show it to this. That's Silas' curriculum. It's in vertical. I only captured it that way so that I could share it with you. And let me show you how he presented his expertise. Sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah, there it is. Thank you.
Den brandfarlige kanel er en oplagt god historie fra de sociale medier. Vi dækker den i første omgang udmærket, men hvor er opfølgingerne? Video med den brændte og en forklaring på det brandfarlige kanel. De ekstra visninger løb TV2 med. De sociale medier er en oplagt jagtmark til gode historier og tendenser. De skal ikke bare findes, de skal også dækkes journalistisk og visuelt. Til det er mobilen et genialt værktøj, som langt flere i organisationen skal lære bedre at kende, end de gør i dag. Jeg er en stærk visuel journalist, som er hjemmevant i Photoshop og Premiere Pro, men jeg foretrækker billige og geniale apps som LumaFusion, Snapseed og Apples Clips, der selv sætter tekst på, mens man taler. Brugt i virale historier som den om kæmpeisen på Ibæk Strandvej, eller en hurtig montage over VB's mange trænere de seneste år, lavet på 20 minutter på mobilen. Perfekt til Facebook, som elsker video. Det skal vi have mere af, sammen med bedre og flere lives og animeret indhold. Og vi skal lære af hinanden på tværs af mediehusen. Instagram er til de bedste fotos og de korte, vertikale historier. Men vi skal have en skarpere strategi, og det skal være nemmere at publicere til mediet. Det har jeg nogle værktøjer til. Derudover skal vi have en koncernstrategi på Twitter, og være klar til at hoppe på eller kassere nye sociale medier. På min blog både anmelder og lister jeg digitale værktøjer og mobilapps. Jeg har flere forslag til, hvad der skal tilføjes avisens værktøjskasse, og har 2 gange i foråret undervist i mobiljournalistik for Update. Jeg tror, jeg kan bruge mine evner bedre, hvis jeg får lov til at blive højere og friere på fysiske medier.
So that's his resume. How is your curriculum? Paper? How many pages? How do you watch things? How do you enjoy? How do you learn? How do you share content? On paper? Probably not. But Silas understood that, and very soon, when he finished his studies, he was hired by a media outlet, and he's working with that media outlet since the very beginning, and he's doing amazing pieces and sharing amazing content. Keep on going with some other things. Let me see if this works now. I think we should. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. It started from. No. Sorry, I thought it started from the beginning. So the question is, why Mojo? Why mobile journalism? Not confusing with Mojo, which in Spanish is something a bit different. But why Mojo? It is. Go to Canarias. I was not thinking on that. I was thinking on Mojo Picon, the potatoes. Why thinking on Mojo? Well, this is. I mean, depending on who uses it, it has a different, I don't know, meaning, sense, or whatever. For me, the sense was clear. I was a guy of radio, and still are, but I was a guy of radio, and I was hired by Giuseppe Conini to go to the TV and do some reports and contribute with him weekly and lots of things. And he asked me, okay, I want you to be on the street and ask, well, he wanted me to do something on the studio, but then I said I would like also to interview people outside on the street, and he said, okay, no problem. You should talk with Raul, who was the production company, the producer, sorry. And then he said, you have to talk with Raul. Raul will assign you some camera crew. The camera crew will call you. Then you will have to meet at a certain point. You will record whatever you want. Then you will go back to the studio. Then once you get in the studio, you'll have to put that content into the system, edit it, publish it, and go down and explain it. Come on. So you're joking. I mean, I'm a guy of radio. When we want to do things, we just get the phone, we call, we produce something fast, we record it. We do it in question of, I don't know, 30 seconds. So I said, no, we can't do it that way. He said, well, how do you want to do it? This is TV. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do it with a phone. And he said, how are you going to do that with a phone 6 years or 7 years ago? I said, well, phones have now HD. At that moment, the super top phones had HD. Now they have like 4K or whatever you want. But that moment, it was HD. So I said, it's enough. You've got HD, I've got HD. I'll try to, I don't know, make it work. And I bought that mic. I still have that mic, which at that moment I thought it was incredible. Now I think it's crap and it doesn't work, but it sounded like it worked. And for me, it was something I needed. I needed to tell stories, nothing else. It was a solution. So that was the first thing. Then I started analyzing who was doing things in mobile around the world, and I discovered that it was the first Congress of Mobile Journalism Congress in Ireland, in Dublin. And I went there, and I met this guy. That guy is Nick Garnett. He's in BBC, in the TV and in the radio. And after many mails talking about Mojo, he wrote, we all have to be able to do this if we're to stay ahead of the pack. Literally, our jobs depend on it. And that's pretty much that. Because the first thing I saw was that Nick was doing a live in BBC Morning, in the typical morning show.
Let's go live back to Calais. Nick Garnett is there, our reporter. Nick, good morning to you. I know you've been there all morning. Just describe to us what you've seen.
There are hundreds and hundreds of lorries parked up on the roads around Calais this morning.
Okay, this is the typical stand-up you do on TV to explain whatever is going on. The problem is not the way he did it, it's how he did it. And this is how he did it. The same way he used to do it every single day in his life when moving around, because he's like an internal correspondent for BBC, moving across Europe to tell stories, to explain whatever is going on. And what he needs to move around is his tripod, his iPhone, an adapter, which is a Rode SC6, and a double cable, one for listening to the studio, and the mic. That's all. And he can go live. And just by looking at the first video, you would never thought that he did it with a phone. And that's the key, that nobody knows how you did it. Because the important is the message. And that's what he got. When I saw that, I mean, my mind kind of exploded. And I said, I need to do that. And I need to bring that into my newsroom and convince those 50 journalists with sometimes an old mindset that we need to change things. We need to change all this. And we did it. And this is some of the pieces we did on the newsroom.
La extrema dreta i les seves paperetes
socialistes de provar
Els 8 líders del Mobile World Congress.
Bona nit, Josep. Este és un gran... Construir una ciutat per a tres.
La qualitat d'avui diumenge ve marcada per...
Per primera vegada de remuntar.
La presó provisional.
a la campanya encara hi ha un 30%, 4.200
Per suport als sondejos.
Ha guanyat a sorpresa tothom.
Les primeres informacions encara no confirmades.
So basically what you saw there was what we did, some of the colleagues of the team, some of them reacting really fast to some of the information that were happening. You saw there some of the international correspondents moving to France or whatever. There was a terrorist attack when there were elections. Some people covering elections in Spain, some of the people connecting from the newsroom and creating content from the newsroom, because it doesn't make sense, going back to what we were saying at the beginning, that if I do a show, a TV show at 7, 8 or 9 in the evening, when something happens at 11, I think that when I go downstairs, it was downstairs then, to the studio, I have to explain something that people know since 10 hours ago. It doesn't make sense. You all have Twitter, you know it. So why would you be waiting for me to tell you, this morning we knew that, whatever. Doesn't make sense. So what we did was the team were ready always with a tripod and a mic and a mobile connected always in the newsroom. And when something was going on, hey, come on, Mark, you need to get into right now and just create a piece on this so that you introduce the topic and afterwards we'll go deeply on that. And then when we get into the newsroom, into the studio, 10 hours later, the spectator, the audience, is not expecting to listen that happened. Do you remember about the 5 W's that you always heard, 5 or 6? There are some of them that don't make that sense now. What happened? We all know it. It's much more important that you are able to bring the context, that you're able to do something that a computer or an algorithm is not going to be able to do. If you don't do that, you're not valuable. If you're not valuable, I don't want you in my team. It's easy. If you cannot bring me anything that a computer can bring me, why should I hire you? There are algorithms. But if you're able to connect dots, if you're able to bring me context, if you're able to tell me this is happening because 6 years ago that happened and the other thing happened and that happened, then you become relevant. Your story is relevant. If you explain me little real stories, you're going to be relevant. Sometimes we tend to explain huge things that are happening right now in Iraq, in America or somewhere. Well, maybe we should focus more on local news, because that's what we know, that's what we can tell. So it matters to explain things outside, but a lot inside. So Mojo was great for us to explain lots of things, to cover lots of things, and we did it changing the whole newsroom. I could extend with this like for hours, but basically my intention to bring Mojo was 2 things. If we summarize it, would be 1, telling more stories. Why? In a newsroom with 50 people, managing the whole information of a day, we normally have 8 teams. 8 teams, I mean 8 camera crews with the cameraman, blah, 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 all that things. But it was typical that in the midday when we had the editorial meeting, we used to say, okay, so what are we going today? Well, we already are recording whatever, we sent some team some other plays and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes there was something urgent. And it was very typical that I used to say, Raul, can we go and cover that? And he used to say, no, we don't have cameras. What do you mean we don't have cameras? We have to explain that. Yeah, but we've got all the cameras out. Yeah, but we need to explain that. Yeah, but we don't have cameras. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, the way we do it is introducing more cameras. And Mojo kits, like this one, were like, we had 8 cameras and 8 Mojo kits. Another thing that we did was our correspondent in New York, he used to be, Jaume was there, we started there, he used to be connecting with us once a week. Why once a week? Well, because it's really expensive to connect live with somewhere outside for 10 minutes. It used to be the satellites works very well, but it's a bit complicated for several reasons. So we used to work with 4G backpacks, which is another technology. But even with that, the cost of a connection was around 1,000 euros, just the technology, plus the guy, so plus the fee of the guy. So if once a week you have to connect with one guy and it costs you $1,000 every connection for 1 minute or for 10 minutes, it's a bit crazy. And when, after that, you realize that the next year is going to be election year with Donald Trump there, you realize that you need to tell stories every single day on what's going on there. So we said if we introduce Mojo there, which was crazy, doing some tutorials when I was in Menorca and he was in New York, with videos and Skypes with all this and teaching him all that. It was a bit crazy, but he did it. And we could connect with him every single day. And you know how much it costs for us to connect with him? Wi-Fi? Signal? €1 a day? So we could tell more stories. We could have more devices. We could have more people outside. And we got something even better. We transformed the mindset of our cameras. Our camera crew used to be, like all camera crews, sometimes those guys who got a bit bored on what they do, they used to set up the tripod, click record, light up a cigarette and say, whenever you want. And then the reporter used to go, you record someone and that's all. It didn't make sense. So when introducing this, everyone can do this, everyone can manage with this. So the reporters could be on the ground, recording some certain things, not everything. And the cameras, the camera crew, could do what they are good at. So just getting the camera, look at there, trying to find a good way to tell stories, and then moving in a way that gets the story more attractive. So it was a win-win. So the next question is, can we produce quality content with a smartphone? Well, you use it every day, so you should know the answer. There's some pros and some cons, but the answer definitely is yes, we can. Pros of smartphones and mobile journalism. It gives you freedom. First, you can move fast, really fast. I don't know if any of you have heard about what we say in Spanish, un cuaderno ATA, but it's basically a document that you need to fill out when you want to travel with your camera gear, with all your team, and it's crazy. And it takes a lot of time. When there were terrorist attacks in Charlie Hebdo or anywhere, our team was like, to the correspondent on, well, our guy on international, Ew. His name is Ew Morales. And it used to be Ew. It happened this in Paris. Can you go? Yeah, in 1 hour I'll be in the airport. Get your gear, run. It's your phone, it's some mics, nothing else. It's fast. So it always with you, the phone, it's always traveling with you, as we said, in the pocket, more than your keys. Good quality, yeah, it has good quality. If you know how to manage it, it can give you really good quality. It's very connected with the way we behave, and I'll give you a quick example. And this is typical. When you go to the street and you try to record a guy to talk about anything, doesn't matter. It can be a regular guy on the street or an expert, and you tell him, okay, I would like to ask you about this topic or that topic. Normally the answers are like super smart and amazing, and you feel like, okay, this is going to be great. You set up your camera, the big camera, you press button on, you see the red light, and the guy gets smaller, really small. And then you say, okay, can we go again with that? Well, yeah. What do I say? What you said before? Okay, people is impressed on that. I mean, they're not used to that. But who's not used to this? How many times do you record your parents, your family, your grandma, your grandpa, any of your brothers, siblings? Every time. So we don't get impressed on that, so we get much better or real stories many times. It's much cheaper and convenient, which does not mean that it has to kill our jobs. It does not mean the same, because you can use it in a smart way. And to end with, this is not about gadgets. Thing that many people say, okay, this is about having lots of gadgets. When we did, I remember on the Mobile Journalism Congress, MojoCon, in 2016, all the Mojos, all the Mojos, I mean the professionals, used to go with big bags with lots of gear, lots of gadgets and all that. On 17, I'll try to find it, I have it here because I normally have it. On the MojoCon 17, people used to wear this and the phone. This is a mic, a lavalier mic. Nothing else. Because you don't need much to tell a story. You need the image and a good sound. Nothing else. So this is not about technology. That's why I wrote there, Mojo. And have that clear. It's not important the Mo. It's important the Joe. The journalist. It's important the story. It's not important the mobile. They're doing amazing things with mobiles, cheap, really cheap in Africa, with BBC Academy telling them or explaining them how to tell stories to communities in Africa. And it's important the story. It's not important the mobile. So more things. Which are the cons? The cons of a phone are basically the stability, lightning, and audio. It's everything pre-connected, stability and lighting basically, because as you see the lens of a phone, it will never be the same as a big camera. That's obvious. And then the audio, because these phones are meant to have a very spatial audio, very open audio, so that they catch any sound. And what we look for is a very directional sound. So, well, can we deal with that? I presume we can, and in a very cheap way. We can deal with that with several ways. First, we should have a phone, smartphone. It's pretty necessary for mobile journalism. And you can ask me which one. I would say, I don't care. That's a Samsung, this is an iPhone. Choose whatever you prefer. You can do the same, basically the same. There's some certain differences, but not major differences today. One big difference in the past, and it's still today, it's this, the fragmentation. Fragmentation is a concept which sounds a bit like techie and well, a bit stupid, but it's very easy. How many phones run with the iOS that Apple has? Phones, smartphones, run with the operating system that has Apple. How many phones, brands, does Sony, Samsung, LG, OnePlus, I don't know, any of those run with iOS? iOS 13 right now? Only iPhone. How many iPhones are on the street in the sense of models? At the same time, 6, 8, 10, but they're all pretty the same with the same system. So it's very easy to develop an app for one system. On the other hand, how many phones do you have for Android? How many systems run or phones run with several layers of Android? Thousands. Hundreds. I mean, Samsung, how many devices have Samsung? How many devices from 1,000 euro to €0? How many LG? How many Sony? And Samsung applies a different layer to Android OS, but then the Pixel one are like the raw OS, like the real one, the pure one. But then you've got OnePlus and Xiaomi and Huawei and so on and so on. So if you have to do an app for them, it's going to be much harder than for them. Because you only have to apply to one phone with certain characteristics, that's all. But even though they're doing great jobs in that. So fragmentation is not that important anymore. So both. Then you need mics, of course. We want proper sound, high quality sound. And that's really important. We need very good sound. Why do we need very good sound? And this is a thing that I tend to explain in class with my students. What do you associate TV with? Image or sound? TV? Great, but mainly you think on image, right? Radio? Okay, we think in 21st century I should say both, but really sound. What happens if you're on the TV, and let's say on TV, and you've got the typical connection with your correspondent in Kuala Lumpur, and you're listening to him, he's normally with a catch on the screen, so a little kind of window there, and you start to see your correspondent like fragmenting and just getting pixelated, but the sound is perfect. What happens? Nothing. You keep on working, you keep on listening. Maybe you put an image, a static image instead of the video. What happens if the sound does not work but the image is perfect? You see your correspondent, the handsome guy in the world, perfect, looking to you, but you stop with that. Out. We'll try to connect again. Sound is so important. I mean, you can get in love with someone because it looks brilliant, beautiful, stunning, and handsome. But if doesn't know how to address the messages, it's not going to work. Sounds, voice, the way you explain things, the stories are amazing and are really important. So we need to pay attention to stories, and if you record a content and it's not brilliant in the sense of quality because you don't have a torch to show it like properly, like it could be with this one, and you say, well, it's a night and we can't, sorry for that, I'm going to get it as well. Okay, no problem. But if you're explaining, if you've got a good narrator, you can be really stuck to that story. So it's very important. So mics are important. And a quick recommendation, I would say, if you want to use a proper mic, like a TV mic, this one, but with wire, you have to buy Arif Pre. You can have the mic, and any other mic, it will work. There's tons of mics. The typical ones for TV, Lavalier is the one that I showed you. The same but wireless. Some directional ones. This one is one of my directional ones. You can have it with the windshield. It's called, normally, do you know how we call this thing? Let me see if I can take it out. Do you know how we call this? Huh? In English, we say dead cat. It's a dead cat. Yeah, gato muerto. Yeah, it's the way they call it. I don't know why, I didn't invent it. But you can have a dead cat like this for the air, or you can have a mic like Nude, like this one, which is directional, which is not like my recommendation. I would never recommend this. I bought it, but I don't use it. But well, here it is. Like that one there, like these Rhodes, like a better Rhodes, or the small ones, which are amazing and they work very well for working with Bluetooth on huge distances and all that. There are tons. So any mic, grab the sound properly, whatever you want to use. Apart from the sounds, you will need lots of connectors. If you have the perfect equipment, maybe not, but if not, you will need them. Because the mic that you use with the phone, it's not a normal mic. I mean, people think that the mics we have in the phone are like the ones you used to have for your iPod, which is a connector called TRS, which basically stands for this. This is a typical one, and it's a tip ring slip. But if you need also the mic part, you need a T or S, which is this one, which has basically left, right, ground, and mic. Well, this is about mics. It's a bit annoying, but if you look at your kind of earphones, like the ones that you have for any of your phones, they will probably have 3 lines, black lines, like that one's there. That means that they're ready to be a mic at a certain moment. So all mics for smartphones are TRS, but if in case they're not, there are some adapters that can just turn them into valid phones for that. Is that my phone? I normally have it in silence. I didn't even recognize the sound because it's always in silence, and it had to be in airplane mode. It doesn't work. Okay, so the tripod, monopod. We need to go through this thing that we said, stability. So a tripod will help. A shoulder pod. This is a shoulder pod, and this rig helps you to, if you want to just do it more in a reportering way, hold it. Of course, without the tripod. Or the new version presented last week. It's this one with lots of cold shoes in case you want to put any mic or any torch or anything. And this is amazing because it has also, you can just get into your tripod vertical or horizontal. So if you want vertical, get in here, landscape this way. And if you don't have this or that, it's going to be hard to get into your tripod. Basically impossible. There are some copies, but if you talk with any mobile journalist, will buy a shoulder pod because it's amazing. I just brought a video of shoulder pod, I think, before they launched this one, so that you can see how modular it is.
We are ShoulderPod. We make professional tools for using smartphones as cameras. What makes our system different? It's modular, like Lego. So with only a few different parts, you can build up the rig you need for every project. Do you just need a handle for your travel shots? What if you want to add a light to those night videos? Or maybe you need an external microphone for an interview. Travel light and tell your story. Shoulder pod. It's modular.
So it's modular, it's like Lego, and you can mount it the way you want, the way you need, depending on the equipment you've got, and it's really convenient. So we need a grip, something to hold the phone, because even if you think that your phone like this is going to be great, after 2 minutes, you will die. I mean, 2 minutes like this, it's like a bit annoying, and you will not be stable at all. A power bank, of course you need it because you will consume a lot of battery, a light, a LED torch, but it wouldn't be my first thing that I would spend money in because you don't record that much at nighttime. And some other gadgets, for example, stabilization. If you want a great stabilization, if you want to have content that could be look like recorded with a drone, buy a gimbal. A gimbal from DJI, for example, they just launched a third version. I've got the first, and it's great. And the third version is so cheap. I mean, it's $100, €109, I think. So really convenient for what it is, and the shots are amazing. And the technology is a drone technology. The tool is amazing. I mean, with $100, what you can do is crazy. I've been recording with that lots of times, and with Steadicams, professional Steadicams, and they were like, oh, look at that, and he's going to do it the same as us. And it's really good. So you can do great content. So, to end with, some little things about apps or relevant software that you could start using if you want to start playing a bit with Mojo. My first recommendation would be, let me see if I didn't do more zooming, but the first app you see on the left-hand side, if you really like recording, if you really enjoy creating videos and good content with good quality, you should buy it right now. And you're a generation of the right now, so no problem. It's called Filmic Pro, and I say it's relevant to buy it because first is the best app for recording, and this is something that doesn't happen very much right now, you pay it once and you forget it. I mean, it costs like €15 and you forget it. The new app they launched, which is for photos, which is great, you pay €8 or €10 a month, which is the traditional way they do it now. So €15 forever, it's great. This is the tool that Steven Soderbergh, who you saw on the first video, used to record the last 2 films. So a guy like Steven Soderbergh, and it's not the first, there have been lots, recorded his last film entirely with an iPhone and with that software, Filmic Pro. So it's really relevant, you can do everything. When you show it to filmmakers, they are like amazed. It's really good. And if you look at the last presentation of Apple on the last presentation of the iPhone 11 Pro and all that, they presented with the guys of Filmic, because Apple recognized that they're the best. And they presented this new feature in where with Filmic, you can even produce your content choosing which of the cameras you want to use. which of the 3 cameras on the back and the first on the front. So you've got like, if you were a mixer, you can decide what do you want to shot, what do you want to show. It's kind of crazy. And just to show you how relevant this can be, I just wanted to bring one of the last videos they just recognized. They have a contest of different videos in different categories every year, a filming contest. And I want you to see this video. It's a documentary of 3-4 minutes. Let me see if we can, yeah, there it is. One of many, but just for the quality. This is recorded entirely on a phone.
I love the light coming through the trees, light on water, reflections. It just touches the waves as they're about to break. It's all about the light for me. I was born in Grahamstown in the Eastern Cape, South Africa. My first memory of painting was going with my mother, and I used to sit with her and sort of top up her water or keep her easel steady, but I just loved that, and I often go back to that image. When I felt pregnant with my first child, I then started going to the painting studio, and it was from there that I really took off on my painting. I realised, gosh, it's really what makes me tick. As I walk into my studio in the morning, my heart's racing. I have adrenaline pumping through my veins. It's scary because I don't know whether today I'll get into that right flow. And I did that. I put my coffee cup down. I do like to doodle and sketch and tidy up or fiddle flap around. Sometimes I start rearranging furniture in my lounge, and then my creative juices start going. Just that bravery of crossing that threshold and getting in there. I would describe myself as being an imperfectionist. What's most important for me is the actual process of painting, that feeling of almost meditative letting go, getting into the flow. That's when I feel like the wind is in my sails, and I just love that feeling. I love South Africa. I'm as passionate about South Africa as I am about painting. The light, the countryside, the people, the culture, I absolutely love it. We spend a lot of time in the Transkei, in a rural village called Manteku. We've been going now for 27 years. They've been a huge influence in my art. A lot of my portraits come from them, from the villages. We talk, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no cell phones, we are just us as a family with the villagers, and it just makes everything seem worthwhile. If I'm painting a tree or a landscape, I'm looking for the eye. Whether it's the eye of the stalk, the hollow, the trunk, the shaft of light. I just love the fact that the eyes just speak to me. I want to try and capture what is that person thinking. 2017 I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had a double mastectomy and then started chemo. I did a couple of paintings. It made me feel powerful. Looking the cancer in the eye, in a mirror, and drawing myself. Bald, no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes. In actual fact, it gave me time to really think about where I'm going, what I want. It made me realize I'm really happy with who I am. It gave me this defiance of you're not going to overshadow me.
think it's amazing. Except for the drone images, everything is done on a phone. I don't know which type of phone, but everything is done with Filmic, and that's pretty easy to know nowadays with the metadata that all phones have on any content, on any footage. So it's they can check it. But it's amazing. And when we ask ourselves, can we deal with it? Can we have really good quality content with the phone? Of course, to tell a story, small story, informative story, documentary, anything that we need. Apart from that, let me show you some of the tools just in case. In case you think that this is impossible, you can edit any content in a really easy way and not expensive at all through KineMaster or LumaFusion. KineMaster is in either iPhone and Android, and I would say it's cheaper than Luma. But apart from that, you can use it for free from now on with a watermark, or you pay for it without the watermark. LumaFusion was also promoted by Apple, but done by the guys who were managing iMovie, and they just quit the company and created their own company of edition. And if you edit on LumaFusion on your phone, you can be amazed. I mean, it's much better experience than even the editing with Premiere or anything. And if you want a cheap solution but that has everything, especially on Android, PowerDirector, which is $5 or $6, it's amazing. And by the way, if you want to create a content in a really fast way, like a good Frankfurt, let's say, but where you can touch lots of things, you can download right now Quik, Q-U-I-K, Quik, which is a really easy tool to create a quick content out of videos and images in a matter of seconds with several layers and types of filters. And well, it's pretty amazing what they do with the artificial intelligence. And that's basically, I think, everything I had. Well, as you know, I wrote a couple of books. I would prefer to write one, but the editorial guys, the guys on the editors and all that were like insisting on having two, which are these two books. Basically, where I was very interested in was on this one, which is the digital transformation of a newsroom and how you introduce Mojo to bring and tell better stories and more stories. And the second one was because we also changed very much the way we covered elections. We know that we were living on the last years a very, how can I say, a very entertaining moment regarding to elections. We vote more than ever. So, well, we had plenty of moments to practice and to send our team to record content, to share it, to spread the word minute by minute, and to use a good platform to show how was everything going on. If you have any comments, doubts, or anything, you can follow me or find me everywhere in the net through @PipoSerrano, and just get in touch, ask whatever you need. I'll try to help. And that's a bit all. I don't know if there is any question, anything you'd like to know, anything where I can help you. But from my part, this is pretty much everything. Thank you. Thank you. I'll display this.
Thank you, Pipo Serrano, for introducing us into the Mojo concept and the digital transformation newsroom. Super interesting content, this conference. I am reading the first one, and it's really, really interesting for journalists connected with the Mojo concept, because we're speaking with a person that is making this in his real life, in his professional life, and making others to make it too. So as he said, we will open a turn of questions now. So if you want to ask something to him, is the moment. Is there anyone, any journalist in the room? I would like to ask you one thing, because I was thinking when you were explaining to us about this change that you provoke into the newsroom, I suppose that the behavior that you found, it wasn't so easy sometimes. So I would like if you could explain to us, not just that technological part, we changed this, how you manage people also in this sense.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part, the tough part of the whole situation. Everybody thinks that changes happen in a really quick way, and changing mindsets, it's the hardest thing. You can have lots of technology and great ideas, but people, all of us, we're people who tend to like to be in a comfort zone, in a comfortable place, and not to change much. I mean, we're doing it okay, so don't touch anything. But I mean, the only way to change things is touching things. And that was my obsession from the beginning. So I have to say that on the first months, a big part of the newsroom hated me. Yeah, that's true. They didn't really like this new guy who came in the room and said, we're going to change things because they thought this guy's going to kill us. I mean, we have to work more for the same money, and he's going to annoy us. And I did it. I annoyed them. But I did it for good. And some months after, some of them started to realize. There's always, when you're dealing with so many people, there's always like several or different moments of desire of change. Some people will never change. They were born old-minded. I mean, and they don't want to change. I mean, this is not going to go with me. I'm not going to do it. If you see that clearly, you have to leave them. Don't fight with that ones. Forget them. Start working with the other ones. And sometimes there will be kind of, this can become something contagious, and they can feel like they need also to change because they see what happens on the rest, with the rest. So don't waste time with those who are just blocking the new system. Start dealing with, you need some certain souls that are with you, that want to change things. Sometimes there are very few, and they will hate you initially, but once it works for long. And this is again like biking or running or anything. I mean, to make it move at the beginning, it takes time, but when it starts moving, it gets speed like very fast. So it was a bit hard. It was very hard with the camera crew. The camera crew thought this was going to be against them. This would kind of finish with their jobs. This guy is coming to make this cheaper. This guy is going to give this to a journalist, and they will do everything. That was not my intention. And to be honest, we started with 7 camera crews, and when I left I didn't leave it. When we finished the project, there were 8 camera crews. So I hired one more. So it was not against them, and but they were not very happy with me. And the team, well, some reactions, some others kind of skeptical, some others started to work. But once you start, it works. And basically, you need one thing that I explained it in this book. What I tried to explain in this book, and I wrote this book like journalists do things, like in 2 months' time, every night writing a couple of hours. Well, both books, 2 books in 2 months, more or less. But what I wrote here, it was very easy to write because it was my experience. Like really raw, really transparent. This is what I lived. Citing people, mentioning everyone, mentioning the process, revealing all my problems, all my solutions, revealing the tools we used. So everything I learned, it's in here. What it gets really good when you explain everything you know is that you feel like forced to learn new things, because if not, they will catch you by reading. So you feel forced to learn more things. But one of the important things, the most important thing, was that I had the support of the director of the show, Giuseppe Cuni, who from the very beginning he said, we need to go on that direction. And I think it was on the 2nd year where I became also the deputy director of the show with him, that when we started in front of 50 people like you now, Giuseppe was explaining a bit the show for the year, the planning, and he said that this show is not going to be anymore a TV show. We will become from now on a digital show. And afterwards, at night, we will explain some of the things we explained in digital on the TV. But we will start being digital. And that changed everything. Because basically everybody had to say, okay, we need to trust this new guy because the boss believes on this and we have to do it. And when it works, they feel like they were properly directed and makes it everything easy. So that was a bit the key. Yeah.
Good morning. My question was that in my case, I did several projects for as much for school as for university with a mobile phone, and sometimes when I changed to, well, all the times when I changed from the mobile format to the computer, the quality diminished a lot. And my question was in all the presentation, how you achieve even using a program to maintain the same quality that you have in the mobile phone in the computer.
That was probably one of the challenges that we had at the beginning. When I told to the guys when you imagine a TV channel, you've got the IT guys. The IT guys are the worst guys. We love them, but they're the worst ones. Because they want to assure that whatever you're going to show on the TV is going to be amazing. No risk. No risk. I mean, this is going to be like the best, and that's working. So when I started telling them we're going to do this with phones, the first things they said is, this is not quality enough. I mean, this is not good enough for us. And I said, well, they're doing it at BBC. Are they worse than us? We're not going to do it. So the first thing I did was, you know that there is an expression in Spanish which is mejor pedir perdón que pedir permiso. So that was basically what I did. We started recording and shooting and doing content with the phone. And once I asked some of the guys of IT, did you like the report we did yesterday on whatever? Oh yeah, it was amazing, I loved it. How do you do that? Because you didn't get any camera. No, we did it with a phone. Oh, you did it with a phone. We never said you can do that. Yeah, but you loved it and you didn't realize it. So we did it that way. So it's hard. And it's true, it's hard. The only thing you need is to first understand very well the formats. And second, don't kind of work too much with conversions and transitions from one place to another one. I mean, if you record, let's say in 4K, and when you edit it with the tool that allows you to edit 4K and export it in 4K, it's going to be good. If you record on 4K, but you edit it and you export it in 720, which is HD, it's not going to be good. And sometimes when you export it, you do it in Apple ProRes or you do it in H.264, it's really different. So quality requires space. And that's what you need to know. And then afterwards, if you upload it to YouTube, depending on the quality you set up, it's going to change. So my recommendation here would be, if you're going to digital 30 frames per second, not 24. 24 it's basically for TV, 24, 25, depending if it's American or Europe, so PAL or NTFS. So 30 frames per second, that's the standard. If you have an iPhone, that's already happening. You cannot choose it. If you have an Android, you can choose it. And I would record with the highest resolution you can, but being really aware of where are you going to use it. If you're not going to use it in a place where you can realize 4K, don't waste your time, don't waste your space. Shoot it in 2K. If you're not able, I mean, to my team, 90% of the times I tell them shot in full HD, 1080, that's enough, and export it on the same way. But don't start like changing from here to there, because every time you export something, you lose quality, every single time. So that's why I started saying smart consumption, smart creation, and smart distribution. If you can record with your phone, edit it with the phone, and export it and finally publish it, it's going to be the best solution. But you can acquire like really good quality. I don't know which phone are you using for that. No, which is the phone? Which one? It should be enough. I mean, it's not going to give an amazing result, but with the Galaxy Note 4, with the 4 you should have probably until full HD probably. I don't think 2K at all. You probably have HD or full HD, but it should be enough. I mean, again, the guys on BBC Academy are training young communities and people around the world that have no money with cheap or free phones and doing an amazing job. I mean, what matters is the story. But of course, depending on the device, you can export it better or not. But the only recommendation is 30 frames per second, as high as you can with the notes, go as high as you can and export it with the same way. And try to have content recorded with the same device. That also helps. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else.
So I get with this concept, what matters is the story, the other is technology. So nothing more. Thank you for being here, people. I would like to. I appreciate a lot you be here, and so nothing more. Thank you.
Gracias.